I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the Saturday Morning Community Forum. I'm excited to bring you another broadcast. This week we have a Power Pack program. We want to open with a discussion, a very brief discussion on Wall Street. 100 years after Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where African Americans owned businesses and they were engaging in commerce. Here we are 100 years later. What does Wall Street mean to people of color and African Americans? Well, if you want to know more about it, join us at our Wall Street conference at the end of this month. There's information on the screen. You can register for Wall Street conference now. Our action for the week really deals around housing. It is the same issue that really brought Dr. King to Chicago in 1966. It's this whole issue of slum conditions that people are forced to live in because they exist on the economic margins of life. Today we want to show you what we're doing with a HUD-owned property in the 9th Ward in the city of Chicago. It is managed by Capital Real Estate. It's called Concordia Apartments. We want you to see how many people are living in HUD-owned properties, not just in the 9th Ward. It's all across Chicago, but it's all across America. This is one example of a project that PUSH is engaged in, and we're going to be looking at HUD properties in a city or a place near you.
The basketball rims don't have nets on them, they took them off.
At the beginning of Women's History Month, Reverend Jackson was alerted by Rainbow Push Coalition National Field Director Bishop Tavis Grant and National Youth Director Reverend Cameron Barnes of complaints of mold, mice, lack of repairs, and proper management at Concordia Place Apartments affecting the lives of women and children.
We shouldn't live like this. A dog live better than this.
We found certain patterns that we found to be quite disturbing.
Reverend Jackson and staff acted immediately and arranged meetings with Capital Realty Group officials and HUD officials to discuss the problems and find some possible resolutions.
You need to be treated with dignity and respect, and we need to resolve these issues. HUD, I'm here today because we're committed to it.
And part of the challenge is you shouldn't make more and have to pay more. You should have to make more and have to pay more. And then what you're paying for, you're not getting appropriate services as deemed necessary to achieve quality of life.
Dozens of tenants complained of lack of leadership, mismanagement, decay, lack of repairs, rodents, mold, rent gouging, and the like. Some tenants have had these complaints for over 2 decades.
It's just been rats, roaches, mold.
We get sick every week. We get sinus infection, asthma attacks, everything.
Reaching management is like impossible.
We've been fighting this for too long.
Reverend Jackson and staff are currently working with Capital Realty Group, the City of Chicago, and HUD officials for immediate resolution for the following: securing the process of getting reimbursement from their cars being towed, reopening the laundry facilities on the weekend, rent assessment, making certain no one is overcharged for their rent, 14-day inspection by HUD officials for repairs, recreational facilities for children, technology lab for tenants, management tenant meetings. Fighting for you is what we do.
We're going to fight this fight. The cameras are here. We're here. Yeah. Say Concordia. Concordia. Give me an example for the nation.
This is an ongoing action item for the Rainbow Push Coalition. Stay tuned.
I'm Todd Yeary, Chief Administrative Officer of the Rainbow Push Coalition. On behalf of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr., I invite you to join us for the 24th Annual Wall Street Project Virtual Economic Summit on March 30th and 31st. Our theme is the Wall Street Dilemma, 100 years after Tulsa. This year marks the 100-year remembrance of the Tulsa Massacre in the area known as Black Wall Street, as we convene to honor the memories of those who lost their lives and remember the significant economic impact of the African-American entrepreneurial spirit. We will convene to discuss the historical significance of Black Wall Street, the current economic challenges facing Black America after COVID-19, and examine what the future holds for all of us as we recover from the pandemic. There will also be a special CEO panel discussion about corporate leadership in America today. You don't want to miss this year's summit. For more information, visit rainbowpush.org, and always remember to keep hope alive.
Each and every week, we want to make sure that our children are engaged and projected in the most positive light. So this week, we have two things that we want to share with you. Reverend Jackson has committed to a conversation with Young America. And so you're going to hear some excerpts of that conversation. We want you to lean in and listen to as our children share questions and comments with Reverend Jackson. In addition to that, we always want to highlight and feature our young orators, our young poets, our young writers, and so you'll hear from one of our oratorical students who has graced us with a poem this week. And then we want to make sure that every child has access to a high quality college education. So we're going to highlight our scholarships this year. The Toyota Jesse Jackson Fellow Scholarships are available, Orly Saunders Scholarships, New York Life Scholarships, Aramark Scholarships, which are targeted for students not going to four-year college but are looking for a career. We want you to register for any one of these scholarships. Apply online. Go to pushexcel.org. There's more information right now on the screen.
Hi, I'm Leilani. I've been a homeschool student for 2 years, and today I will be reciting Discipline is an Art by Orlando Caesar. Discipline is an ancient art, a profound triumph of the heart. It merges stamina and will and forms a bond to hone the skill. Discipline is a science developed in defiance to methods logic won't employ and standards pride would not enjoy. Discipline is emotion as evidenced by devotion to rituals and a belief. Success without hard work is brief. Discipline is a science, a course in self-reliance, but few are those who volunteer to spend the time to persevere. Discipline is an ancient art, a profound triumph of the heart. It merges stamina and will and forms a bond to hone the skill. Thank you.
Today I am here for the Jack and Jill of America South Suburban Chicago chapter. I am Patrice St. Jean here with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Thank you again, Reverend Jackson, for being here with me today.
Rainbow Push is the Rainbow, a broad spectrum of organizations, so multicultural and multilingual. Latinos and Native Americans and women and people of color. All the spectrum of the rainbow. We're not just a one ethnic group organization. And we modified it to serve humanity. We got a little more modest than serve it. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you for telling me. I'll remember this for next time. What is one of your most memorable experiences with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
And the Rascal to one in Chicago, one in Atlanta. His last birthday, January 15, 1968. We really realized it was his last birthday. He really grew of us from around the country. There were Native Americans whom we knew of but had not really worked with. There were Latinos, the farm workers from the fields of California and Arizona. Blacks pick cotton, they pick fruit and vegetables. We both picky, get picked on, you know what I mean? Didn't know each other really. Whites from Appalachia, Jewish allies from New York, Harlow and Scene, and blacks from Deep South, South Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. So it was a multiracial, about 60 of us met. Then he said, we're going to focus here on poverty. We won the public accommodation bill. When he spoke in 63 in Washington, we could use the hotel, motel from a movie theater from Texas across the Florida to Virginia. We couldn't use any of them. Our money was counterfeited. Holiday Inn would not accept us. Well, black soldiers and Latinos sat behind white Nazis on American military bases. If he dreamed of a day that would not happen. So we won that bill in 64. 65, we won the right to vote. August 6, 1965, after the Bloody Sunday. So now we have public the right to vote, except there's abounding poverty. Too many people are poor, don't have means, they don't have health care. Women get sick, soreness in the breast, they get a Tylenol rather than mammogram. They're uninsured, you know what I mean? The reason why we have this asthma, so high on asthma, although we live in environmental wastelands and dumps, for example. And if you don't have insurance and you don't have transportation, you can put problems off until it's too late. You stage 4 of the cancer, so to speak. Poverty. People in Appalachia, they're poorer than we are, they just don't know it. Most poor Americans are really white, female and young. They're not black and brown, white, female and young. They work in the coal mines. They work in the steel mills in the hills of Allegheny and Appalachia. So if we could find common ground, how do we move from racial battleground, we're always fighting each other, space, the economic common ground, the moral higher ground. How do we move from racial battleground, economic common ground, moral higher ground? We all have a lot in common. We all need affordable health care. We all need a decent education. We need the right to a job that pays, vacations and educating our children. We all have those needs. We spend much time confronting each other, we're going to work together. That was his meeting. It was very up for that meeting, very exciting meeting. We left that meeting that day going around the country. We had in Washington that June for a campaign. In Resurrection City in Washington. We set tents up from Washington Monument to Lincoln Monument to expose the fact that we won Vietnam, rather more poverty at home. Killing abroad, rather healing at home. So that was the plan. Of course, it was interrupted by what happened in Memphis April 4th. But that meeting was a very exciting meeting. I remember very distinctly.
I really look up to your work, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King. I believe what you fought for was the right side of history. To move on, what was Dr. King's vision for African Americans in the future?
First class citizenship. We were subjects, not citizens. It was the simplest experiment in 1932. Black doctors were not in General Hospital, for example. Most times, black lawyers face all white jurors. All those registered to vote, federal jurors. So we couldn't vote in federal jurors. We denied our citizenship. In 1880 and 1940, 5,000 blacks were lynched, like lynched, hung from trees. What happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma happened in Rosewood, Florida as well. Burning down whole cities. 5,000 lynches. They have lynches, they send an advertisement church on Sunday morning. They've been lynching there at 4 o'clock. Whites would gather in great numbers to a lynching party. At the festival, killing us that season. He wanted us to have first class citizenship. So we got for a Supreme Court decision made segregation illegal, with no plan to really end it. And then the Public Accommodation Bill 64, we can use hotels. I went to jail at age 19, so I used the public library, for example. And I went to jail again trying to use the downtown facility. In Greensboro, North Carolina, I was in school in North Carolina, A&T University at that time. So we won that battle. Then the right to vote. But once we got the right to vote, that key to the kingdom was voting. With the vote, you can self-determine your leadership. Vote for judges and mayors, and city council people, state legislators, congress people, Senate and the president with the vote. Without the vote, you're very handicapped in democracy. Democracy not have the right to vote well, it's a terrible situation. So he wants us to have, and he wants to implement it. But he'd be happy about today, I'm convinced of. Dr. King never saw a cell phone, by the way. He never saw a black mayor in Atlanta, his hometown. Mayor Jackson became the first black mayor. In D.C., Birmingham, where the showdown was in 63. Selma, Alabama, Birmingham, Montgomery, Alabama. When he died, there were like 4 black congressmen dead at 62. The explosion of black votes would excite him very much. It would delight him. Because with that vote, we determine the destiny of the nation. Case in point, Trump would have won this time. The massive black vote defeated him, which has angered him, but we have the power to vote. So he would be delighted.
Wasn't until this year where I truly noticed the importance for American citizens to vote. I am 16, so I'm not able to vote yet, but voting is my most important right, or one of my most important rights. And I appreciate you guys fighting for our right to vote. The third question is, do you think
we were able to get some a precinct in Cook County Jail, the 5,000 youth, most of black youth, and they 18 and above will be 18. They have the right to vote. So one kid, why should I vote? I said, you have the right to vote for the judge upstairs. You realize you vote for judges, state's attorney, attorney general, all of them you vote for. So no appreciation of the vote is not a good thing. We must appreciate the right to vote. I'm glad you're looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm taking it all in, trying to process it in my brain. The next question is, do you think enough is being done to cultivate and motivate the next generation of young leaders to step up?
I do. You speak to me about passing the baton. There's no baton to pass. You get in, you become involved, you get into politics, learn to volunteer. So all of us learn how to do what they do. At the end of the day, service is power. Needs-based organization, self-interest is the same force. But I'm saying this to you, that if you want to serve, there's nobody to stop you. You want to organize your high school. How many seniors in your high school class?
Many, over 300. It's a very big school.
But that's a big block of voters.
Yes.
You learn to convince them that voting matters, and but you voting matters if you want more scholarships, less student loan debt, more security, more safety, more wars to stop. Now you vote for that, fight for that, and so I think that becomes the challenge of your generation. And I see young people, the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, Mayor Bottom, mayor of Washington D.C., young mayor down in Alabama, Talladega, Alabama, not 30 years old. You have the right to go and the right to run for office. You have the right to do all that if you choose to. But politics is not the only way to lead. You lead as a minister, as a journalist. You take the great picture, a right to read an article. So leadership cannot be confined just to political leaders who are highly visible. That right now, the real leaders in our nation are researchers, not journalists, not politicians, but researchers. In the pandemic of this virus, you're not looking for a soldier. You're looking for a cure, right? Research and doctors became leaders. So if you pride yourself, then come a time where your leadership will manifest itself.
Yes, researching is very important. I it didn't come to me until you said it. After thinking about it, so many things wouldn't be today without research, without studying, without experiment. That is for sure. And our last question for today is, who are some young leaders we should be looking up to or watching today?
I think the Black Lives Matter group, the idea of making America better, the rumors, they're leaders. Some of them I don't know by name. Look at young black congressmen out of Virginia, Northern Virginia, New York City. They're under 40 years of age, under 40. There's no, if you're old enough to vote, you're also old enough to run for office. You can't teach what you don't know, you can't live what you don't know. You have to learn the voice of the people. Who runs office? She was death on the black church. It was not that. She had to meet black churches, churches, sororities. She had to meet people who would vote. At the senior citizens' home, she had to learn the art, politics, the art and science of relating to people. It's just a people business, right? And so LeBron James, that's the case. He's a basketball player. He used his platform not just to get trophies. He's a great player. He also makes sense. The young man was killed in Florida, Trayvon Martin, because he ran a hoodie. Who and other players wore hoods. So he's a young leader, and people follow him. Remember, he helped transform force because pioneers break the path, create the path. Those follow the path. He's a leader, and LeBron's a leader. There's young ministers who are leaders. Reverend Meeks, the biggest church in Chicago. And I was in Breadbasket many years ago. He and his sister was washing dishes downstairs in church. He has the biggest church in Chicago in the black community. Be faithful to your God, obedient to your parents, and faithful to your own dreams. Let nothing break your spirit. It's difficult sometimes. You must never give up and keep hope alive. And when it's real dark, know the morning coming. So you have to wait for the morning to come. Don't jump too quick in the morning. You miss there may be a train, not sunshine. You don't jump from a train, right? That is, you follow what I'm trying to say? That if you lead, it's difficult between the pandemic of the virus and Trump's leadership. The dark period, and yet through the dark period, we raised him, we voted, and we defeated him. So the morning is coming because we work by night.
Yes, we did defeat him, and I believe that my generation, as well the generations to come, after seeing what situations we were put into with the pandemic and with President Trump, his presidency, I think we've learned to use our voices, we learned to use our rights, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to vote because the youth's vote does count, it does matter, and it is very important for our country.
And youth also inspire their parents to vote.
Yes, parents.
Jack and Jill groups of America, all over the country, you can make it happen.
Attention high school seniors and college freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. If you are in need of financial assistance, Push for Excellence offers a variety of scholarships for which you may be eligible to apply. Whether it's the Jesse Jackson Fellows Toyota Scholarship, the Cirillo McSween New York Life Scholarship, or the Oralee Sanders Scholarship, Push for Excellence strives to offer something for everyone. Here are just a few of our scholarship recipients.
Hello everyone viewing, my name is Chidi Osakwe.
Dominique Davis.
Julian Jones.
China Mazum.
Miles Chairman.
Jalen Clark.
Marcus Anderson.
Jaden Reed.
Kari Young.
I'm Megan Chu and I'm a Cirillo McSween Scholar.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Reverend Jesse Jackson for all his support of my college education.
Thank you for all of Toyota for helping with Reverend Jackson with the scholarship as well.
I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson for helping to make this scholarship opportunity possible for me.
As appreciative as I was before, I'm even more grateful now having received this scholarship.
Not only has it helped me out financially with paying for tuition, but it has also awarded me the opportunity to learn more about the Rainbow Push Coalition and their different initiatives in the African American community.
I'd like to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition for all the generosity and support that they've shown me throughout my undergraduate career and for the opportunity to pursue higher education.
For more information, please visit our website at www.pushexcel.org and click on the word scholarships. Thank you and keep hope alive.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
Welcome to the Push for Excellence education segment. We have two outstanding educators, Dr. Vaughn Mansfield, superintendent of the school district in the south suburbs, Homewood Flossmoor School District. They've been doing some amazing things at Homewood Flossmoor. And so we're going to hear what it means to be responding to COVID in a high school district. And then we have, you remember her, she's on almost all the time. She's our educational consultant to Push for Excellence. She really directs all of our education town halls and hosts them and has been bringing constant information. So we're going to let her rest today. So I know we should open up with you, Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Sonia Whitaker. What do you see? What things have you had? What adjustments have you and your team and your school district have had to make in light of this COVID and its impact on education?
I'll start off by saying the adjustments that we've had to make really centered around what we've learned about the resiliency level of our students and their parents. They wanted to have the resources that they needed in order to continue learning, but they didn't always have. And so the question then became immediately last March when we learned that students coming to the actual building was not even going to be an option. You know, today it's an option, but at one point in the state of Illinois, that was not an option. And so we had to make that adjustment, again, based on one, what was mandated in terms of their attendance on the physical property, but two, based on what we knew about what our students and their parents needed. In our instance, we knew right away that far too many of our students did not have the technological resources that they needed. And so one of the ways that we adjusted is we did take the federal funds that were allocated to our school district, like many, and made wireless. We made Chromebooks and laptops available to every student in the district, as well as Wi-Fi hotspots for every family in the district. So within a matter of just a few weeks, we closed the digital divide so that we could again provide our students access to the content, to the curriculum, and supporting materials online in the home setting.
So were your teachers ready for remote learning, remote teaching?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I don't know how else to answer that because we hadn't done it before. There was no reason to have to do it before. They got ready very quickly. In fact, I have been amazed because in my position, I've actually gone in and observed, I'm sure Dr. Mansfield too, I've actually gone and observed teachers teaching during this pandemic crisis. And there are days when I wonder if they even know a pandemic crisis is going on. Wow. We've come a long way from last March when we had to not only, that's a great question, Dr. Wilson, not only were we getting laptop computers and Chromebooks out to our students, but we actually did have to provide some of our staff members with the technological equipment that they needed to deliver the instruction in their own home setting. And so were we ready? No, not at first, but we got ready real quick.
And I know you're serving as deputy superintendent in the Dalton School
Correct.
District. She wears a lot of hats, but has been in this education arena and watched the changes occur over time. And Dr. Mansfield, who we've known for some time as well, now as superintendent of Homewood Flossmoor. What did you have to do? This is a year later, really. It's almost a year to the day that we're looking at school districts 1 year into COVID, and it's not over yet. What did you do?
Well, I think Dr. Whitaker put it in the best way possible, in the sense that we learned along the way and we did what we needed to do to make it work. And as she mentioned, I was surprised at the digital divide, even in the suburban area, where you think kids.
Yeah, I thought y'all had all the money out there.
Well, we have some.
Y'all had a digital divide?
We had some. So in response to that whole notion, you have to find out who those people are. And we did get Chromebooks to them. We literally had to take our classroom sets of materials for the hardware and start passing that out, because some of those Chromebooks and devices were classroom sets, they're called, where just, they're in the classroom. So we start peeling that out, because we start running into a supply issue from Dell and some of the other computer companies. They couldn't make them fast enough to get to the school districts. So from that regard, you had to be a little bit creative. So we indeed start taking some of the materials we had in the school setting and delving those out, especially since the students weren't in school. And again, to Dr. Whitaker's point, we had staff members who also needed hardware because they have children at home also. So there's usually one device.
We don't talk about that.
No.
The teachers have children that they got to have, even if they have a computer, because I know parents are watching what they need a computer for, because they have children also.
Absolutely. And also they work, and also their spouse may work. So all of a sudden they've got to have 3 devices in the house, where normally one probably when people taking their turns. The other thing that we discovered with some of our students is they literally had to go on shifts also, because at times where one student took 2 hours to do their homework from 6 to 8, then their brother or sister or, family member jumped on and did their homework from 8 to 10. So, even with one device in the house, it just wasn't enough at times, and we too had to provide Wi-Fi opportunities to people and also to our kids, because it was just not existent to the degree that made it fair and equitable for everyone. So to your point, Dr. Wilson, I would say we have resources and we ran into that. I can only imagine those school districts that did not have the resources and how much more disadvantaged those students and families were without access to what was needed.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand it. Dr. Whitaker, you really know this. If I have 4 children, I work at one of these big box stores. I don't have any benefits. I can't work remotely. I leave them somewhere at home with the Wi-Fi. How do you make sure that these students are even online? Because that I know how they used to skip school, but how do you skip school remotely? How do you make sure they don't? And I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Mansfield, because how do they cut class as high school students? But the little kids, I get tired after an hour. What do y'all do? Y'all got 6 hours of school, right?
Yes.
Remotely.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, how do we determine if students are online? With our English, language arts, and mathematics programming option, because it is a computer-based curriculum, we're actually able to see when they logged on and when they logged off. And so you want to talk about what's happened since from March to March is during a period that we doing things at the leadership level we've never had to do before. At first, when students left and we gave them computers, it wasn't at the top of our brains. How would we, I'll say analytically, monitor whether or not students were engaged. And so as we began to look at the curriculums, that's when we began to learn more about what information that we could get about student engagement level. So for our administrators team, we actually started our April meeting, students out in March. In April, the first thing that we did was we pulled up those numbers. That means at my level, senior level leadership, we actually showed the administrators, we went school by school. In the area of mathematics, 80% of your students are logging on 80% of the time. Another school. In the area of mathematics, 60% of your students are logging on 60% of the time. I will tell you, my administrators are like, whoa, at your level, you have access to all of that information. Absolutely. And as time has gone on, so not only do you have to have the data, but you have to then put it in front of the leaders to then put it in front of the teachers. As a direct result of that, now we're out a year later, and my administrators and my teachers are now also monitoring that data. In addition to, again, checking the box, yes, student signed in, but teachers aren't teaching. They're not teaching face-to-face like we're talking like right now for 6 hours. There are times when they have to release the students to go and do work. And so that's when it also became important to have access to that hard data that says, what did they do when they got off the Zoom with us? So that has been one way that we've been able to ensure engagement as much as we can manage by monitoring it.
So if you give me an assignment, you teach the class for X number of minutes, and then you tell me to do something, and then I have to log back
into the math program or the English language arts program to do the work, which is where we can capture the minutes online and minutes.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that something? Never knew that before.
It's a lot, especially for little kids
that
are moving around. I mean, I don't know what I would have done. You let me off and then tell me to get back on, and I don't have an adult in the house. I don't know.
And there are some instances where there's families where the grandmother is keeping all the grandkids. So she went from just maybe one set of small grandkids to 10, maybe 12 kids with 12 laptops or 12 Chromebooks.
And she doesn't know how to, and grandmama doesn't know how to use any of them.
And now with just a few rooms, and now all the different teachers are teaching different grade levels.
How do you deal with the changing classes? I'm a senior or a junior. I'm doing 5 different classes. How do I do that remotely?
Well, actually, those kind of logistics, Reverend Wilson, are easy because you just click on the link for that class. So there is no movement. In fact, we said there's no reason for y'all to be tardy now because you don't have to walk between classes. All you got to do is click a button.
Yeah, but I'm tired from the last button I clicked.
Well, and you know what? As Dr. Whitaker said, that is the challenge when you have maybe a parent trying to supervise and you just get burned out looking at a screen all day. So we did try to build in some time for kids to kind of get a break, just as if they were passing between classes. So we did leave the passing time as if you were passing so that you could, make a pit stop or go get some water or just get a break. I think it's really interesting in the high school setting, at least, you have to think of these new terms called synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. And I guess the technical word for what Dr. Whitaker was talking about was the asynchronous, which means basically the kids are online doing a lesson without the teacher. They're just going through the software program or maybe a lesson the teacher put up there, and they're doing that on their own. And in the high school setting, and some of the other elementary and middle schools, they do synchronous where the teachers are actually online. So you'll often hear people talk about synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. And those are very important terms. But at the high school level, we had to go one extra step because sometimes the high school kids would get into things they shouldn't. So that's why it was also important for us to get Chromebooks to them, because we had control over where they would go on the websites through software.
Oh,
so
wow.
if you don't issue your own technology, then kids are at risk to some degree, and not by anything intentional, sometimes unintentional. Sometimes you do have people out there who aren't looking to do good things, find those openings in those, computer programs or the lesson that you do have to safeguard.
This is amazing. I know parents don't know this stuff. We don't know this. Now, the final question I have before we leave is, how are you going to measure progress? What's the plan? Dr. Whitaker? How you going to test me? You can't even keep me online.
Right. Well, we have been able to do just that. We've been able to assess our students. We did, like we did in the past, we have issued our students a beginning of the year and the middle of the year assessment. And we
is it virtual?
Well, here's where it got tricky. Even though our students are remote, our students are actually still following the remote model. And we'll be following it throughout the remainder of the school year. But we actually was able to get our students to come in at the beginning of the year to take our district's beginning of the year assessment. And we had over a 90% attendance rate. So they came. Well, then the winter came and parents were very reluctant to bring them back. And so what's interesting is we got their fall data where they took the assessment on the property. They took the assessment in the winter, but that was off the property. We saw some gains, but the gains in reading and math were not statistically significant. Across the district, I would say their performance level, as is indicated on this one assessment, was about the same. No significant growth, but they didn't fall back. What will be interesting is when we do our district assessment in the spring, which probably might lead us into a quick conversation about the state assessment as required by the federal government. It will be interesting to see how our students fared when we compare the spring, the end of the year assessment, district assessment, to how they did in the fall. And our classroom teachers are still issuing classroom assessments that they are indeed grading. They're doing it online. And so that is what's happening in our organization. And also we had a district leadership team meeting around the winter holiday where we had every single principal present to the community during a public meeting the data on how their students were performing in English and language arts and math when they compared the fall assessment to the winter assessment. So not only did we assess them, but we told the community what we learned about our students during that time frame and what we were going to do with what we learned about their strengths and weaknesses for the second half of the year to address them.
So you've had some community conversations. Well, what are you doing in the high school to measure progress?
Well, Reverend Wilson, it's going to be a little bit more of an asterisk because just to your point, those kids weren't here. And when we say not here, when you're trying to give a test, you want to make sure everybody has access to the same thing. You want some kids, if you're going to have an open book test, just make it open book and let the kids use their resources to take their assessment. So we've really done something a little different with grades as far as just making sure kids have a chance to go back and review and redo. So it's not like the traditional, sit for an hour, take the test, and that's your assessment, because we weren't able to really keep all the pieces the same in terms of making it fair, making sure the kids were doing their own work. So at that point, you just open it up in like an open book test and just look at the product or the authentic experience that the kids are having, and they're able to share that with you. So the old traditional way of taking tests is changed just a little bit to meet that. But to Dr. Whitaker's point, we're still responsible by the state to take their assessments. So we are asking those groups of students to come in. We still have to take what's called the SAT test, which is a standardized test that most colleges look for. We don't have to take the practice SAT test this year. The state did waive that, but we still have some state tests where we're bringing in all the kids in that class for that test in person. They don't get a chance to be hybrid. They all have to come in.
That's going to be an issue, I think. And one of the challenges for both of you, as you look at these tests, how do you teach science? I heard Dr. Whitaker, you say teaching language and math. but are you teaching science and geography? The things that I remember that are on the test, especially for high school, you have to have some mastery of science and language if you're in high school. This is hard. We need to protest.
Well,
no, what do you want parents to do? We need to do something. I can imagine my child trying to be tested. First of all, I'm still with the Chrome. I'm trying to get the Chromebook and that working with 5 or 6 children of different grades. How are you going to test my child? Mm-hmm. And then if you tell me that they're doing poorly, I'm not understanding.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to recognize that the U.S. Department of Education, released to us a formal statement requiring that our students take the state exam. There's been a number of different memos issued to school districts, and I'll tell you briefly what the latest one was. But before I share that, I'll say that initially at the state board level, the state superintendent for our district, for our state, like many states in our country, issued a waiver request to the U.S. Department of Education with the expectation or the hope that we would be waived from having to issue the standardized test because of the amount of time it takes away from instruction and the obvious, which is students have not been on the property. So that waiver essentially was rejected. And we received notice just a few weeks ago from the U.S. Department of Education that we did indeed have to issue the state exam. And we were given a window, which initially ended sometime later this spring, by which the students had to be tested. Now, there was some caveats in the letter that was issued to us by the new Secretary of Education, which said things like student performance, using my words, will not be held against you. Using my words, the results of student performance are not going to be calculated negatively toward a school district, as is indicated on your school district report card, as it had been done in the past. But that at the federal level, they wanted to get a handle on what students knew and were able to do. Long and short of it is, just recently we received notice, almost a matter of days ago, that we again still do have to issue our state exams. However, we could now consider the fall as an option. So right here in the state of Illinois right now, I can't speak for other states, but right here in the state of Illinois, I am clear, and Dr. Mansfield, you can tell me if your understanding is different. We have the option, no option of whether or not to give these assessments, but we do have the option as of today to determine whether we're going to give the assessment this spring versus the fall. But I got to add that if we give it in the fall, we should note that for the first time in a long time, we would actually be given 2 state assessments next school year, because it normally happens once a year. But if we give it in September, we're still going to have to give it in March.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just the sequencing for us, we're going to go ahead and give it in the spring because we have seniors who hopefully will be graduating and moving on to college or the workplace. And they're going to have that assessment prior to graduation because that is part of the requirement for them to graduate. But as I said at the beginning, there's a big old asterisk here because that information may not be comparable to data and outcomes from previous years because the circumstances are just so different.
Right, right.
Well, I wish we're going to have to do more of this, Dr. Whitaker, because this is an issue that parents have to be concerned about, particularly parents of children in high school. And for those students that fall behind, I'd like to have a part 2 to this where we talk about how students that test poorly for whatever reason, how are we going to make sure they catch up and get up to what is considered grade level? What should parents and community do in terms of communicating with the Secretary of Education at the federal level and the State Board of Education? This is something that we're in a pandemic. And you can't just follow these rules in a pandemic when everything has changed. So we need you to help us at Push Excel figure out what should our response be. And Dr. Whitaker, this is the public policy for education in the 21st century. How do we respond to remote learning in the world of COVID? Y'all want to say some closing remarks as we close this discussion and look forward to another discussion? And you all should convene some other your counterparts. We need to really wrestle with this. Is a big issue.
It is.
I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Well, I think for us in closing, we're trying to slowly make our way back and do it as safely as we can. And we want to make sure parents are comfortable with that. We're starting to get into the vaccination phase, and I would say the majority of our teachers who want the vaccination have had an opportunity to at least get one shot and working on the second. So at some point, I'm hoping that makes its way down to the students as they, continue to improve the science and get to a point where they've got vaccinations for, adolescents and really young kids. So I think it's a slow go here, Reverend Wilson, but I am confident and hopeful that we're going to be back more in person by the start of next school year.
And we're gearing up right now. My head is really wrapped around the possible summer school option. We are actually going to host summer school, but again, because we're 100% remote, that's another hill to climb for us in terms of wanting to bring students back on the property, possibly following a hybrid model, which again is very different from what they've experienced for a year now. And so that's what we're wrestling with right now. Again, is climbing up this next hill to provide some opportunity to address any gaps in learning that have occurred during the period of COVID-19.
Well, I really thank you for this discussion. It's such a frank and open and informative discussion that I know parents need and the community needs. You all got to think about how can we help you? Because we really want to help make sure that every child receives a high quality public education, even in COVID. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. Thank you, Dr. Mansfield.
Thank you, Dr. Mansfield.
1865, after 26 years of slavery, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January the 1st, 1863. It was a big deal. He could not free everybody, he could only free those in his possession, because he could not free those who were under Confederate control at that time. He laid the groundwork for freedom, and those in the South began to travel north for their freedom, and the impact was irreversible. And yet, 100 years later, John Lewis and Jose Williams and Amelia Boyden led a march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, Alabama, brought to a head 50 years of struggle. The culture, the law changed, the culture had not yet changed, but it's changing. It was changing for the better. 54, we broke the backbone of legal segregation. But 55, Rosa Parks sat in. She told me, she suggested, I was going to sit in. She sat down, not as some washerwoman who is the stereotype, so she was a freedom fighter, and she sat down, and the rest of us stood up because she sat down.
At times, history and fate meet at a single time, in a single place, to shape a turning point in man's unending search for freedom. Many of the issues of civil rights are very complex and most difficult. But about this, there can and should be no argument. Every American citizen must have an equal right to vote.
Since the Voting Rights Act, that's been the difference between Americans today. Blacks were able to stop the right wing in 1865, 1863, when Lincoln freed blacks. Blacks saved him and saved the Union. We beat back the Jefferson Davis, those representing slavery, secession, segregation, and sedition. We beat them, and then we beat them last year in the election here in America. Trump is in the tradition of Jefferson Davis. And Johnson is the second greatest president America has ever had. He signed the bill August 6, 1965. His very speech at Howard University talked about we shall overcome. That was the theme of the day because Dr. King had used we shall overcome in his speeches in the Maine and in Washington in 1963. So Johnson, we shall overcome bigotry, denial of rights to vote, we shall overcome separation and choose unity over disunity. We thank Lyndon Johnson. He is a man of great stature and great significance for the struggle for decency everywhere. Thank you, Lyndon Johnson.
For 2021, we're excited to get more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. Now, if you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those who are incarcerated, you can do so. If you're interested in impacting public policies that benefit education and businesses with social economic solutions, you can do that as well. You can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. Now, if you believe in the scholarships that we've given to thousands of students each year, you can help us out. We've awarded more than $10 million in scholarships year to date. Now, you can help young people achieve a higher education by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now for the annual fee of only $35. And if you're a student or a senior, it's only $15. You can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. Now, if you watch us every week, or if you listen to us on the radio, or if you're viewing on social media, we need you to become a member. And how do you become a member? It's simple. Visit us at rainbowpush.org and press join. Maybe you'd like to support the work of Push. If so, it's really simple. You can do so by texting the word PUSH, that's P-U-S-H, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving, or you can call us at 773-256-2775 or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. So whenever you want to support, you can do it from anywhere. So keep pushing, because we're going to keep pushing for you and keep hope alive.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did and what we did and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it and give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. You know, we've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the U.S., but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody.
Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.
But you're not pushing me away.
Join the movement.